Witches, photography, watermarks, and levitations. Today we're going to be discussing how this photo was made, how popular it got, and the consequence of going viral in the digital age as a photographer. My original intention with this video was to make a simple tutorial on how to actually accomplish this in post-processing. But I slowly realized that this was much more of an interesting story than just a simple editing tutorial. The beginning started a lot earlier than I thought, and after the photo was featured, the ending, it got a lot more complicated. So let's start at the very beginning. I only started shooting in 2013, and in my first year, just like all our first years, we're very creative. We shoot everything until we find out what we're good at, but the only way to find out how is through experience and lots of trial and error. I've always had a passion for witches and wizards. You know, being a magician, I had been familiar with a lot of the material and old text and images. I was really drawn to the classical interpretation of witches, you know, before Hollywood took over and made them green and ugly. I wanted to recreate the original atmosphere from the old paintings. My true goal was to make this photo look like it was taken 100 years ago. So within only a few months of starting photography, I put out a casting call on a site called Model Mayhem. I even mentioned flying naked witches to a few of the models on there. So one by one, all of the models flaked. It required nudity and no one else could see my vision. So I just gave up on the idea. It was eerie going through those old messages. The vision was so clear. It's almost as if my current self went back in time to my old self and tried to describe the concept of this photo to these other models, but they had no idea what I was talking about back then. Fast forward a few years and I had built up a decent reputation and portfolio. It wasn't until there was a shoot with smoke grenades with Lady Catastrophic that the vision suddenly came back. I've always been obsessed with thick fog, but it's impossible to predict. Natural fog is quite elusive, so it's hard to organize a shoot that requires it. Not to mention finding 5 models willing to get naked in the woods and get up at 5 in the morning. So after the initial richness of the purple fog, the smoke started to dissipate. And then it became this hazy-like atmosphere. And I knew then it was possible to create fog. I let her take care of the casting because previously I had failed convincing 5 girls to get naked in the woods. I wonder why. The casting went great. We attracted about a dozen models, but my issue was a lot of them were alternative models. The thing is, modern witches tend to be more gothic or alternative, and that's fine for right now, but back in the day you wouldn't see any tattoos or piercings or colored hair. So as alluring as that alt look is, it's just not what I wanted for this photo. And the whole goal of this photo was to make it look like it was taken 100 years ago, which would be kind of impossible if everyone had tattoos. We had about 6 that fit the bill. And when it came down to the day of the shoot, we were down to 4. Navi, Kat, Melissa, and Jaina. And of course we had our security, which was bodybuilder Corey. I also had Photoshop on my side, so I knew I could clone anybody if I needed an extra body. Now it came time to the actual photo shoot. The main focus of the shot was obviously the floating witch in the middle, or the floating virgin sacrifice in the middle. But first, the problem with levitation photos. Let me talk about this for a second. So how do we make sure that levitation doesn't look bad? Being a magician certainly helped, but there's a lot of levitation photos out there that are just not very good. The problem with a lot of levitation pictures out there is that instead of a levitation picture, it seems more like an invisible chair picture. All they do is they put their model on a chair or table and then just remove it in Photoshop. It just looks bad, it looks cheesy, and it just makes levitation photos in general and magic look bad. And being a magician, it just irks me. It's just It's just so easy to fix. Maybe we'll do a separate video on how to do a levitation photo properly. So there were only two options to make sure she didn't look like she was just laying on an invisible aquarium. Option one was to dangle the model from a harness to make sure that her body would fall into place instead of just being flat like it was on a table. So option two would be to hold the model between her armpit and her knee to make sure her butt is free of any constraints and it's not flat at the bottom, which is the problem with a lot of levitation photos out there. Since the trees were too high to dangle a rope from and just the logistics of it were too dangerous, we went with option two. Once we got the floating shot, we were ready for the other girls and the smoke grenades. I was going to combine many pictures into one picture, kind of like a double exposure, except times 5. In this video, I won't go into the specifics of exactly how to play with layers to combine multiple images into one. So go watch that video after this video. Make sure you watch this one first though. Okay, bye. I only had 2 smoke grenades left, so I knew the window of opportunity was very low. We only had 90 seconds. So I had to simultaneously move the grenades around and with the other hand, take pictures with a remote app on my phone. Multitasking, just a little. I directed the models to sit, stand, go in a circle. I needed many options, and during this whole time, Corey and I were circling the girls as I was also triggering the camera to snap the photos. I was lucky enough that the photos were in focus, but the smoke did get overwhelming in the end, and a lot of the photos at the end didn't make it. Few of them did, so I had enough to work with for what I had in mind. I chose my best images that worked together, and using layers in Photoshop, I combined them into a final image. Once again, see the multiplicity video to get the exact details of how this was done. Now here is something you never would have guessed. The smoke was not white. Look how colorful they are. A totally different mood, no? The photo was released on October 31st, 2016. Now, I submitted it to Dark Beauty magazine soon after that, but it didn't get featured until way later. I like Dark Beauty magazine because previously one of my photos had gotten 10,000 likes and 500 fans overnight. So I thought if that photo did so well, this photo should do really well. It finally got featured on July 2017. Facebook, Instagram, website, and even Tumblr. It received 6,666 shares, and it was so popular that it even became their cover photo. Keep in mind, Dark Beauty magazine has over 1 million Facebook fans. We were all thrilled with the amount of attention and exposure this photo was getting. But then came the darkness of the digital age. Every few days, one of my followers would find the floating witches photo online somewhere, on a featured account or a blog or website. Now, sometimes they kept all the credits from the Dark Beauty, they just reblogged it, which was fine, although they didn't keep the actual tagging feature. And other times they removed the credits entirely, or even worse, put a cringy color filter on top. Now, the smaller accounts are harmless and are bound to happen, but then the bigger accounts started featuring them, netting 10,000, 20,000 likes, and credits were removed. Some were nice and cooperative and fixed their errors, while others just played dumb and just ignored the problem altogether. Or even, at worst, blocked me so I couldn't complain about it. The worst part about seeing your photo with 20,000 likes and credits removed is the genuine interest in the comments. Who is this photographer? Where can I buy a print? And then after me commenting, having the photo completely removed, losing access to 20,000 potential fans. So even if 1 out of 1,000 actually bought something, that's money out of my own pocket. Oh shit, there's a deer. So many missed opportunities, all the fame without any of the benefits. After commenting fruitlessly on their comment section, I realized a lot of these big accounts don't have time to check the comments, don't have time to see every message that gets sent to them because there's so much spam. So I started doing something a little bit different. At the time, Instagram stories was a new thing. So I would put up a story and tag them and then say something like, "Forgot to add credits." A lot of times they would just reply and be like, "Oops, sorry, I didn't see that you weren't tagged. Here, let me fix that." And other times, it got a lot worse. In one of these cases, my Instagram story direct message method actually worked. One of these accounts took a screenshot of my story. All my story said was, "It's a good time to be an artist." And she took a screenshot of this and posted it to her 250,000 fans, trying to call me out for standing up for myself. So apparently in the comment section, it went something like this. "I found it online, so therefore it's in the public domain. I am free to use it as I will." The commenters who are backing me up were sort of like, "That's akin to saying that people who got raped deserve to be because of the way they were dressed. Just because you found something and you have access to it doesn't mean you're entitled to it." And she was all like, "It's all..." I can't do this. A few photographers in the industry had a lot of insightful things to say. And one photographer in particular even bought a photo himself. After posting about it, I ended up getting 1,200 fans in 1 hour.
"Reverse image search did not yield a photographer's name, so don't tell me to do that. Thanks, mysterymanphoto."
If you wanted to be credited, why didn't you just put a watermark on it?
Think of a time that you picked up a magazine, National Geographic, or anything, any sort of publication, that you remember seeing a giant watermark of the photographer. That's right, it doesn't happen, because part of any publication standard is that watermarks must be removed. This was very much the case in this scenario, as I submitted to Dark Beauty magazines and they asked for the watermark to be removed. So once I brought up this issue to the would-be offender here, we just cleared it up. We just realized it was a giant misunderstanding on her part. And she apologized and we were friends right after that. Until she blocked me 5 minutes later. The gist of it was, to many living in the digital age, they don't know the difference between what's in the public domain and searchable by Google. They assume that because an image is so easily searchable, it's theirs, because they did the digging. So now we have all these feature accounts out there. They're kind of like a mixtape, a collection of the best of a niche. They're great for bringing exposure to small artists, if used properly. But luckily, not everyone is a dick who's out to get you. There are honest misunderstandings sometimes, and sometimes all that you need is just a conversation. Artists and feature account should be a perfect match. They bring the original content and they bring the audience. It's a mutual, beneficial relationship. So is our online photo safe out there in a world of accessibility and entitlement? Is a watermark even good enough? How would you have handled the situations? Do you watermark every single thing you do? Is there even a point? Leave a comment below and share your watermarking stories. If you want to see more behind the scenes and the stories behind certain photographs, comment below on which ones you'd like to see. We'll do more behind the photo stories like this if you guys like that kind of stuff. If you'd like to purchase your own copy of the witch's photo, there will be a link below, as well as any other photo that might strike your fancy. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with your photographer friends.
Thanks, mysterymanphoto.
I don't know why she turned into a Skeletor.
I hate you, He-Man.